Hello there, you're watching the press preview, a first look at what is on the front pages. Time then to see what's making the headlines with the Daily Mail's consultant editor, Andrew Pearce, and the Daily Mirror's associate editor, Kevin Maguire, and plenty to talk about, no doubt about that. So, to the front pages then. Let's kick off with The Guardian, which suggests the Liz Truss's energy price free, though to involve a cap of £2,500 a year until 2024, could be an attempt to bring about unity in the Conservative Party. £150 billion scheme to freeze energy bills for 2 years, reads the front of the Times, as they look at the same story. Although the Mirror welcomes news of an energy price freeze, the paper points out that Ms Truss is still resisting the idea of a windfall tax. The Daily Mail also leads with the Prime Minister's prospective energy policy, their headline, Liz's Energy Revolution. Here's the Eye then, their headline, Truss reveals energy gamble as pound hits a 1985 low. The Telegraph hears she'll say Britons should never be put in the position of paying such expensive bills ever again. The FT frames her entry to number 10 against the backdrop of the pound hitting its lowest level against the dollar in 37 years. And the Metro has the story of a Canadian student who was murdered by her boyfriend shortly after she moved to the UK to be with him. And on a much lighter note, the Star carries research suggesting, or a different note rather, Jesus might have played an ancient form of cricket. Well, a reminder, by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers while you watch the programme. So let's go to Andrew Pearce and Kevin Maguire, who join us now. And, one big story in town. Kevin, you kick off. 2 days in the job and massive sums of money we're talking about here.
No, absolutely. And she'll make the announcement herself tomorrow. We'll actually get the final details. The Guardian talks about 130 billion package, Times and Telegraph 150 billion package, 2-year freeze, although that 2,500 level would be 25% more than the 2,000 ceiling now if you're a typical household, the cap. Although the government in the first year would give you £400 towards that. Second year, we're not so sure. So no, it's a huge movement. As the Guardian, for instance, says, it's her attempt to unite her party, win over a British public that is a little suspicious about her. But it is, the stakes couldn't be higher. But you're right, the sums are huge, much bigger than the furlough scheme in COVID, although not the total cost of COVID, which was about 400 billion. But then there's a huge crisis in their cost of living and energy bills for people, and the dividing line between the political parties really are how to pay for it, which we saw at Prime Minister's questions, which Keir Starmer, Labour, were pushing the idea of a windfall tax to cover at least some of it. Liz Truss has got the first windfall tax, but is not going ahead with a wider windfall tax when the Treasury documents are suggesting there are 170 billion excess profits for oil and gas producers because of Putin. I mean, that's a lot of blood profits.
So what did you call it?
Blood profits. Look, they're on the back of the invasion of Ukraine. They're not because of higher investment or great innovation or imagination or risk-taking by the producers. They are because Putin launched an unprovoked invasion of
Okay.
And it sent prices.
Yeah, I mean, they're also global profits, aren't they? Not necessarily all taxable here in the UK. Andrew, you reflect for us, first of all, how she's done so far, looking back to PMQs yesterday too, I guess, if you want to, and whether this is make or break for her, this announcement tomorrow.
Well, it's not just make or break for her and the government. It's make or break for literally millions of families, because they simply would not be able to afford to pay the energy bills that are coming down the line when the regulator lifts the cap again and then lifts the cap again next April. We know what Putin is doing. He's closing down that pipeline, probably indefinitely, to cause even more pressure on prices, because that's his economic power. We've imposed sanctions on Russia. He's returning the fire. So I think she's had a pretty impressive start. I thought she was very good in the Commons. I thought she got the better of Keir Starmer. She was helped for once by Theresa May. When Theresa May usually gets up at Prime Minister's question time, certainly when it was with Boris, that was going to be trouble. But she asked a corker of a question: why is it that the three women Prime Ministers have all been Tory? And a great response from Liz Truss. Yeah, and why have the last three Labour leaders all been men, white men from North London? But look, she had a pretty confident start in the Commons. And this energy package from the Tory MPs I've talked to pretty broadly is getting a lot of support. We're going to get much more detail tomorrow. I don't know if the figure's 130 billion or 150 billion, but you have to put this all in context. When Gordon Brown came up with that package to save the banks back in 2008, it was an outlay of 500 billion, which dwarfs both furlough and the energy crisis. Now, a lot of that money was repaid. We don't know if the energy companies are going to have to take out loans, whether they'll be guaranteed by the government. She'll put the detail tomorrow, but I think it's very encouraging. I was a skeptic about a freeze on energy prices because I thought rich people get to benefit much more, in a sense, than poorer people. But I'm convinced by the argument it's too fiddly, too time-consuming, and actually too expensive to go down the means testing route. So this is the best approach, I suspect. And I think she'll get certainly a lot of massive support on the Tory benches. We're yet to see about Labour.
Yes, there were two big questions, I guess. Would any help be universal or targeted? You could argue Rishi Sunak did a hybrid approach, £400 for everybody, plus the targeted elements like council tax, for example. And then how would it be paid for? She ruled out windfall. That's the lead for your paper, the Daily Mirror, Kevin. Would it be a loan system via the energy suppliers? Would it be actually via borrowing and then later paid back via general taxation? It's likely, we presume, to be the latter, is it not?
We do, but we're going to wait and see the details because some of it's briefing, some of it's speculation, and you want to see it. But no, who pays in the long run really matters, and I think this is why the windfall tax isn't just an academic issue. It is a real matter. Keir Starmer, the Labour leader, put it in the terms of do companies pay, big companies getting excess profits, or do working people pay? And Liz Truss made it quite clear she is against, she said, a windfall tax, although she is going to continue with the one unveiled by Rishi Sunak when he was Chancellor and Boris Johnson was the Prime Minister, but she doesn't want to go around down that road again because she's going to pose as a low-tax Prime Minister. She is vowing to reverse the national insurance rise, half of which has been spent actually already on raising national insurance thresholds, but the rest was supposed to be going to social care. Then it spread to the NHS, so she's going to have a dilemma there. And then she's not going to implement the Rishi Sunak rising corporation tax from 19 to 25% that was going to raise 17 billion. So she's spending a hell of a lot of money early, and it's quite a break from the Cameron era or a bit beyond that, which was you've got to get spending down, you've got to reduce debt. The national debt now, around 100% of the economy, is double what it was in cash terms back in 2010. When Labour
remember it being about 40%, to be fair, but there we are. And the Financial Times going on the concern of the markets, effectively the pound falling again today. And if people are sitting there thinking, well, I can't afford to go on holiday to Europe anyway. This is really about imports being expensive, being brought into this country. Whether it's your food or your plastic Christmas gifts or whatever it is, which feeds inflation as well. So there's big issues about that, and whether interest rates have to go up to prop up the pound. So how do you see this fitting into the argument?
Well, the pound falling so sharply, at one point it was its lowest level against the dollar since 1985. It will be inflationary because we do import so much stuff, and that will mean our imports will be more expensive. But of course, conversely, our exports will be cheaper, so it will be good in that respect. But one of the advantages of the energy freeze, it's going to lead to a very quick, sharp fall in inflation, which will be reassuring for the markets. The stock markets are up, retail shares are up because it is going to have a big effect on inflation. There were some pretty apocalyptic predictions that it could go as high as 18, 19, 20, even 22%, the sort we've not seen since the 70s, really. And now there are some suggestions it could peak at 12 or 13% or may have already peaked. So that's a huge advantage, again, of the energy freeze. But there's no doubt the currency markets are spooked because of the sheer scale of the numbers involved. And as the FT says, the sheer scale of the challenge facing this government and this country. It's huge.
Yeah.
We're in an emergency situation.
Well, many people suggest this is really a story of a strong dollar, the indication from the US that they will put up interest rates, which is strengthening the dollar. The yen, the Japanese yen, a 30-year low, the euro low too. Kevin, do you want to reflect on that? And also, could you bring in the Daily Telegraph, which is another policy announcement? This is the British Bill of Rights has been scrapped. So policies coming effectively thick and fast. So just weave those in, if you don't mind.
No, that's right. She's drawing some lines with Boris Johnson, trying to put a little blue water between him and her, despite the fact she keeps on praising him. On the level of the pound and interest rates, they could go up pretty rapidly in the UK. Unfortunately, we've seen I think it's 3 straight months of increases, but they're going up faster in the US, which is one of the reasons why the pound is going so low. But if interest rates go up, well, you've got a cost of living crisis there with people who are stretched on mortgages and borrowing, whether it's on credit cards or loans. But the Bill of Rights, which to replace the landmark Human Rights Act of 1998 under the Labour government, the previous Tory administration made huge play of that, and how it somehow had to make the Supreme Court in the UK no longer liable to decisions on the European Court of Human Rights, which every European country is signed up to, apart from Russia and Belarus, Russia being expelled. I think it's good she's dropped it. I just hope she doesn't bring it back. But Dominic Raab, the Injustice Secretary, and was the Deputy Prime Minister, is now at the Cabinet. We made a great song and dance about this, how this was hugely, hugely necessary. This bill is gone, but I'm not sure the whole concept has gone yet, because she has some pretty reactionary people in her cabinet. Yes,
suggesting there are better ways to reform human rights law. So we watch and wait how that one progresses. Lots more still to come. We cross the pond as well. The news that broke, that allegations that Donald Trump had foreign nuclear secrets in his possession after he left office. Back with that in just a moment. Welcome back. You're watching the press preview with me once again, Andrew Pearce and Kevin Maguire. Welcome back to both of you. Let's go to the front page of The Guardian, story that broke, I guess, last night. This is what was found at Trump's Mar-a-Lago estate. We call it an estate. It's also a club, accessible by people who can get in from afar. So tell us why this is so significant, and, Andrew, why it might be even more serious for President Trump.
Well, it's extraordinary. We know when he left the White House, he just helped himself to a lot of a large number of classified documents. But it now transpires some of them included the defence and intelligence preparations, including nuclear facilities, for an undisclosed foreign government. So now Mar-a-Lago has become a magnet for foreign spies who want to see if they can get their hands on any of this material. I mean, what was Trump thinking of? I mean, not only did he try and overturn the election result, he's taken away really important classified documents from the White House. And, this is now beginning to hurt the Republicans in the polls, because dopey Joe Biden looked like he was going to go down to a really bad midterm defeat in November in these elections. But actually, his ratings are recovering, and the Republicans are plummeting. And I think it's the Trump effect.
Well, this is all via the Washington Post, who suggested there were papers marked SAP, Special Access Programme, which are often about active US intelligence operations. Potentially more disturbing, papers stamped HCS, Human Control System, involving human intelligence gathered from agents in enemy countries whose lives would be in danger if their identities were compromised. Suggestion now that this is more likely to lead to criminal charges against Mr. Trump. But we watch and wait, which leaves you with the royals, Kevin. I've done this all wrong, I know. So the picture that's been released...
He loves talking about the royals.
But he could give it a quick go and then you can take over. Should we do that? Anyway, so we've got the pictures of the 2 princes and princess on their way to school, and the news that the Queen has missed this important Privy Council meeting, which would have led to Ms Truss taking an oath as First Lord of the Treasury at that meeting. Kevin?
Yeah, I suppose the kids go to school there. It's a very exclusive private school. That's 60 grand a year. Just shows you they don't really live lives that most of the people do, and probably pay very little attention to the lives of other people. But the Queen at 96, cancelling what would have been an online meeting, you've got to say, really will fuel fears about her health after she stayed in Balmoral, didn't go down to Buckingham Palace to see Johnson out and Truss in. And she looks a lot smaller and older. I mean, she is 96, but you can see she is ailing and fading, and it will be the end of an era. I'm a Republican, but I wish her well as an individual and as a human. But you can see it's the late autumn of her life now.
Okay.
She can't do the job. She cannot do the job that she's supposed to do. And I think we need to address in the future
Kevin,
the young.
Apologies for rushing you. We've run out of time, but, you know, still with a sparkling smile, I have to say, in those pictures released yesterday. Kevin, Andrew, thank you.